So is it too late for MSNBC, from the standpoint of have they really just shot themselves in the foot and there's no recovery? From the start of the election, it was pretty obvious that they were anti-Hillary. It really started, that I noticed, right from even before Iowa. You would see, if you tuned into Hardball, just the way that Chris Matthews would speak about the upcoming election. At that time, Hillary was the presumptive front runner. And just in his speech, he would say things like, who out there in this race can knock her out of first place? It was always from that kind of standpoint. At that time, I really just noticed it from him, and even with how he approached any stories about her, I gave him the benefit of the doubt that it's hardball, and she's really the front runner, apparently. And so, okay, he was being tough with her, but then as we go on, and then we get to Iowa, and Obama wins, and now it's like the word is out, like it's over for Hillary. And then they were talking about the projections for New Hampshire, which was, I guess, a week or so later. And it's like, okay, this is it. If she loses it there, it's over. She's finished. It's the end of the Clinton era. Who else in any other campaign after one little caucus would they say this about? So, of course, these people hated Hillary, and it showed without a doubt. Then New Hampshire happens, and everyone gets it wrong because everyone thinks she's going to lose. And Chris Matthews was the very first person I ever heard, we hear racism flying everywhere, but he was the first one that I ever heard interject that into this race. And it was right after Hillary won New Hampshire, and he came on there and he's like, did these white people all lie to us? Because how else could we have gotten this wrong? If you turned over to CNN, you would have seen the truth was that Obama's numbers were the same in the polls prior to the actual vote as they were after. His numbers had stayed the same. It was Hillary's that came up. So he didn't lose any votes. These white people didn't lie. The women just came out for her. But of course, that's not how Chris and MSNBC portrayed it. And then we get to South Carolina, and this little flap, the thing that's been blown up bigger than anything else in this race, which is that comment from Bill, the fairy tale comment. And, the Obama people seized on it. Obviously, they knew he has to prove he can carry the black vote as well. South Carolina's coming up. He's got to win it there. And the media, especially MSNBC, fueled this to the point that it just took away any possibility of Hillary winning any of the black vote there. I don't think she was ever going to get that much of it, but that's when this whole race thing, the Clintons are now racist, started with them. But it's really been, one thing after another. Even though at the time, through Super Tuesday, the first one, Keith Olbermann had stayed neutral, I noticed, in the face of Chris Matthews and his feelings going up his leg, and Joe Scarborough and his love affair or whatever. Keith stayed pretty much neutral, which I respected him for. Even if he was an Obama supporter, he tried to remain objective. Well, as most of you know, that's no longer the case. I was trying to really pinpoint when he totally flipped, because it seemed to happen almost overnight. And the best that I can figure is that this happened right about the time that Joe Schumer or Shoemaker, whatever his name is, the one that said the pimping Chelsea Clinton comment, after he was suspended by this network, and then he came back about 2 weeks or so later, and I kind of think that is where this really just blew up with Keith. I think it had been simmering with him for a while, but that was like the straw on the camel's back. And I don't know what's going on between Keith and that guy. I'm not getting into that, but I think it's payback. That's what it was. And he has been hitting Hillary harder than I think anybody has. The others were mostly singing the praises of Obama. And if that's what Keith wanted to do, I could maybe even tolerate that. But it wasn't really about that. I mean, he hardly mentioned Obama. If he did, it was always positive. But most of the shows, not a peep about Obama. It was strictly Hillary, attack. And that's for me, that was my straw. That I'd had enough, and I said, I can't watch this network anymore. But my point and question is, how many other Hillary supporters or whatever out there had decided to turn off? Because, I've been checking the Obama website. They allow the people to post on their blog over there, and over there the Obama supporters are just enamored of Keith now. He's their hero. He's their champion, obviously. But on Hillary's site, you really don't get a sense of what her supporters are feeling on their blogs. I was just curious how others felt and had they turned away. And the point I'm making is that, I had loved when Keith had gone after Bush, rightly so, although he never said a word at a time when it was heresy to speak out against the war. He only said anything after it was a safe environment and it was fashionable to beat up on Bush, but still he did it. But now he's decided to make Hillary the new Bush, apparently. But the thing is, Hillary supporters, Obama supporters, weren't we all supposed to be on the same side? I thought. I don't know that I would call myself liberal, but I have liberal views on things. I have, I guess, moderate views on things, and maybe conservative views on things, depending on what it is. But one thing I would never consider myself is a conservative. And I can tell you, whenever I would turn past the Fox network, I would, throw holy water on the screen. Not figuratively, but, But I'll tell you, since this election has started, I have found myself I've watched Fox in the past month more than I'd ever watched in my whole life. And it's because you have MSNBC, who is so anti-Hillary, you need somebody to turn to. I'd watch CNN, of course, but the animosity that this election has fueled has made you want to see something negative about your opponent. And they had been pretty anti-Obama over there on Fox. So, yeah, I tuned in for that. But I want to know if MSNBC has basically turned off half the people they once had. And how will that affect their ratings? Because, honestly, I don't think I'm going back. If Hillary doesn't get the nomination, of course, they're going to keep the Obama culties, that's what I call them. But if he loses the election, they're not going to tune in. They don't want to hear about McCain getting bashed, which I guess Keith would do. So then they've lost almost their whole audience. They've turned off the Hillary supporters. And they're not going to keep the Obama supporters. So what was it for? So I don't get it. I guess they can get some back, but I really think that they are going to tank in the ratings after this, and it didn't have to happen. They chose a side when they should have been neutral, but, whatever. I still have CNN, so I don't care, but I just find that very curious.